let me begin. Welcome. I'm Rabbi Nadia Gross. I'm a founder, one of the founders, and the Chief Programming Officer at Yerusha. And we are really thrilled that you've chosen to be with us and to participate in this program. But before I introduce Rabbi Debra Kolodny, who I'm imagine you know who they are. I want to just tell you a little bit about what's coming up in Yerusha so that then afterwards I can just relax and learn from my dear friend and colleague here. So on September 28th, on Sunday, September 28th, we have a program titled Your Stories Look Me in the Eyes, a Dialogue in Poetry. And this will feature Michal Rubin, an Israeli poet living in the United States now, and Basman Dirawi, a poet from Gaza, now living in exile in Cairo, who have been dialoguing in poetry about the pain, the shared trauma, and the difficulties that they confront in their hearts and in their lives. That's on Sunday, September 28th. On Sunday, October 5th, we have a 3-hour intentional creativity workshop titled Embodying Wholeness in Difficult Times with Javi Mandel, who's an amazing instructor in intentional creativity, where you'll work together to create something that will bring you back to some equilibrium, acknowledge the difficulties and the challenges, and create something beautiful out of that. The course Encountering the Tree of Life is being offered in October and November, parts 1 and part 2. That is co-sponsored by Yerusha and the Lilith Institute and co-taught by myself and Yoreshet Ruach Debra Gren, who is the founder of the Lilith Institute. And then the Wisdom School, which has been for almost 2 decades now, a 2-year training program, has now taken the initiation, the initial part of the Wisdom School, separated it out, and is making it available to anyone who wants to experience it without needing to apply. And you just register. It's a 4-month commitment. We call it Unveiling the Wisdom. It will be offered virtually beginning in November. And then folks who complete that program are eligible to apply for the continuation of the program, which will take place a year from now. So there'll be plenty of time for discernment. So those are the few things that we have absolutely right now scheduled. We hope that you will consider being part of more of what we do. But at this moment, I want to introduce to you our presenter this evening, Rabbi Debra Kolodny. Brings 47 years of experience as a national and local justice activist with a particular expertise in securing sustainable outcomes through spiritual activism. Their sustained campaign works include facilitating the National Religious Leadership Roundtable for LGBTQIA+ rights and founding and leading 3 justice nonprofits in Portland, Oregon, the Spirit-Led Justice Alliance, As the Spirit Moves Us, and Portland United Against Hate. And aside from that, they are just an incredibly brilliant, decent, wonderful rabbi and human being. And we are delighted that Deb has agreed to join us this evening as part of this series. And now I'm going to turn it over to you, Deb, and you can do all the rest. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Reb Nadia and Rabbi Victor. It is a delight for me to be here with all of you. I have a slide deck. I really got seriously prepared for you all tonight. And my intention is to walk you through a little bit of a taste of spiritual motivation for doing the dual-pronged work of Tikkun Haaretz, peace building in Israel and Palestine, and climate care, mitigating climate catastrophe, depending on how you want to look at it. So we'll start with a little song and then some text study, and then go into how this project was birthed. It did come out of my mind, out of my brain, born in the sea. And my initial idea, I'll go into more detail in a moment, was that I wanted to return to Jewish renewal writ large. You may or may not know, I ran Aleph for 9 years, and then I went off to be a pulpit rabbi, and I was on the West Coast, and I really didn't engage at the international level with Jewish renewal for the last 12 years. And I had a conversation with Suji, and I said, I'm trying to figure out what would make sense for me to return. And the only thing that calls me is to initiate a justice project that would activate every one of our 300 rabbis and 120 ordination students and all of our 50 affiliated communities and all of our members who are part of communities who wanted to do the work in their communities, even if it was a reform, reconstructionist, renewal, conservative. um, and that yearning, that urge came out of my experience with doing very focused justice campaigns that were spirit-led work that had very, very specific goals and outcomes. So it required movement discipline to do a few things and do it all together and put the force and strength of Jewish renewal behind the work. So that's where it originated from. And let's first of all, I'll show you my pretty opening slide, and then we'll go on to do a little bit of singing. So here's the title, and here am I. And we've got this beautiful fuchsia blue merging, which both feels to me like the clouds in the heavens and the seas, so the merging of the waters above and the waters below, which feels like a healing, a tikkun in the climate world, and also feels like a merging of the two peoples who live on the land. Haaretz. Oh, by the way, the title, Tikkun Haaretz. So the earth is called Haaretz, and the land that we dwell on is called Haaretz. And so having these two prongs of the project lent itself to this framing. So let's just start with a little bit of the season. For those of us who are Jewish, I don't know if everyone here is, but I know many of you are. A little acknowledgement that we're in the month of Elul. Rosh Hashanah is about to um, be before us. And this work of justice work, the work of healing, is all about tshuva, in my view. So, with your mute on, please sing along. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to what you are, return to who you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. And of course, it's not just appropriate in Elul to lift up such a message, but it carries also, it's on this carrier wave for me that the land of my soul is an earth that is flourishing and unfettered by capitalist exploitation and transactional engagement, and that the land of Israel and Palestine, the land of my soul in that place, is a land of spiritual flourishing and coexistence and co-celebration of different religious paths and consciousnesses. So a little bit of text. I'll put them on the screen, and then I'll take the screen off so we can all look at each other and talk about it. Just a couple of slides. The question that we'll talk about is, what do these texts and this prayer teach about our obligation to make peace? And what I would love is to have someone else's voice. So if somebody would like to volunteer to read the first very brief text, two-liner, if you could just unmute and go for it, that would be great.
A
I'll
vote,
read. My name is Marilyn Paul. Shall I go ahead?
Please, and then Mary Rita, you could do the next one. Go, Marilyn.
I vote to Rabbi Natan 23 Ben Azai says, "Who is the strongest of the strong? One who overcomes one's inclinations to do harm. There are those who say, one who turns an enemy into a friend."
Thank you. Mary Rita.
a vote to a vote to Rabbi Natan 12. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, if a person sits in their own place and is inactive, how can they pursue peace in Israel between person and person? Let him go forth from their place and move around in the world and pursue peace in Israel, as it said. Seek peace and pursue it. Now, what is that? Seek it in your own place and pursue it to another place.
And the prayer, which is from 2009. Peggy, would you mind reading that for us?
May it be your will and my awareness of it that you keep me from people caught up in recriminations, seized by their emotions, gripped by indignation and rage. Steer me in the direction of holiness and help me be clear thinking. Channel my concerns for my people's safety in the direction of my enemies' worries. Allow me to recognize in her child's frightened eyes the desperation that a mother feels when a hug no longer suffices. In the face of ballistic metal and within earshot of thunderous implosion. Remove me from the easy strategic platitudes and disinterested observations of spectators, the inflammatory jargon of ideological haters, the detonators of hype and stereotype. God of Abraham and Sarah and Hagar, of Isaac and Ishmael, help me situate myself amidst the quiet and humble doers of practical deeds in hospitable open tents who build trust and mutual investment and the sense that tomorrow there will be no more smoke in the sky and children can come out and argue over a soccer ball and parents can put dinner on a table set for the whole family and for guests too. Keep me away from the rage and be with me at the big table in the open tent.
Thank you, everyone. Can we unspotlight me so everyone can be on the screen? Is that possible? Thank you. So just from the gestalt, just from your heart or from your gut, what do these texts lift up for you about our obligations around peace building?
I'm going to speak to like what grabbed me. In the first one, it was to make peace with the enemy. So it's a sense of, and in the second one, what touched me was that there be peace in me or in what is home for me, and then go out and take that outside. I think it was the last sentence too in that part. And
Seek it in your own place and pursue it to another place.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Go ahead.
right. And then the third one, I think what touched so much was the description of what peace would look like in that land, to be able to just have dinner or to fight over a soccer ball, all those things that are ordinary life that is not possible in Gaza and a lot of places in Israel either, or other places around the world.
Mm-hmm. And this was written in 2009. So what's happening now, the incursion is overwhelming, and the harm, the violence is not new. Anybody else? Something that touched you, that awakened a thought, felt like a new insight. Yes, Peggy.
Yeah, calling on us as one family way back in our roots. We were connected and a mistake was made, and we need to go back and really heal the roots from which all of this sprang.
Beautiful, beautiful. Time for one more. Anyone else? Oh, Marilyn, you're on mute if you wanted to share.
I like, who is the strongest of the strong? One who overcomes one's inclinations to do harm. And I find that helpful because it helps me notice my inclinations to do harm, which I can ignore, act like I don't have. And I really appreciate that, the idea of overcoming that, which means noticing it. So I appreciate that.
Beautiful. When you read it, I heard far more loudly than I'd heard before, a redefinition of strength. Who is strong? The one who overcomes those inclinations, not the one who lashes out with, the biggest weapon, right? Or who does the most harm, or who's the biggest bully, or, exercises the most control. All right, deep breath.
Also, I think has the strength to recognize one's own inclinations to do harm, so they don't come up in insidious ways, or I'm a vigorous struggler with, what should I say, thinking I'm a little over these inclinations. So this is perfect for me.
Man me on Maine. I just want to say, I hear you. I'm with you. Yes, until we gasp our last breath, I think this work is ours to do, right? I know it's easy to feel like, that's all I got. All right. Some more text, or one more text, this time about some information that might cause us to look at our obligation to the earth and her creatures, all of creation, a little differently. It's from Kalonibus Kalman Shapira, also known as the Piazetzna Rebbe, from Derech HaMelech. And let's, if I'd love to have readers again. So Marilyn, you're unmuted. Would you mind reading that first paragraph?
Starting with, and God said?
Yes.
Or the very beginning?
Just then God said.
And God said, let us make the human. The garment of one's personhood, I have to switch glasses. The garment of one's personhood is the window through which one sees the divine, each according to the root of their soul. And so we find with the prophets who would see the divine through different garments and places, yet in truth, it is written, the whole earth is full of God's glory. Only the window that the Holy One established through which they would see God explicitly, and this was the prophet's vision. And when Israel dwelt in their land and did the will of God, this window was in Jerusalem. But when, God forbid, the opposite occurred, then it is in another place.
So I didn't realize when I pulled this up, actually, this also relates to Israel and Palestine and where God's glory is. But who would like to read the second paragraph? Beth, would you be, oh, Mary Rita, you're raising your hand. And then Beth, maybe you could do the next paragraph. Go ahead, Mary Rita.
And this is, let us make the human in our image. This is from the side of the Holy One, that God gave power to humans and apportioned to them how much they would recognize the divine and in our likeness. This is from the side of humans, namely through service, that through their service of their Creator, blessed be, they can expand the window, as it says in the Zohar in Pincus 247a. This one sapphire illuminates all the worlds.
Yes, and Beth, next paragraph.
And this is why the statement, let us make the human, was said to all the creatures. For with the other creatures, aside from humans, the Holy One asked each creature individually whether it desired to be created, as it says in the Gemara, Rosh Hashanah 11a. With their knowledge, they were created. According to their will, they were created. But one creature about another, the Holy One did not ask, because the other creatures have no free choice and cannot corrupt or destroy. And in their creation, there will be benefit for them. And certainly all creatures would agree to be created, for one may benefit someone even without their presence.
And I'll bring us home. But concerning the creation of humans, the Holy One asked all the creatures, because humans have free choice, and through our corruption, we can corrupt even the other creatures. But all the creatures agreed to the creation of humans, and all gave of their power to the formation of humans, as it says in the Tikkunim and in the Holy Arizal. There's a quote from the Arizal, and now remove your ornaments. What does this text say to you about our relationship to creation, our obligation to creation care? I will tell you it changed my consciousness. Reb Nadia, go for
So
it. And
in what way did it change your consciousness? I want to hear that first.
I consider myself an environmentalist and an eco-conscious person, and I do all the things I reuse, recycle, etc., 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 right? But when I read this text, I thought, I would not be here but for the rest of creation.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be here but for the assent, the consent of all of the rest of the creatures. I owe my life. I owe everything. And that is a whole nother level. And so questions arose for me about what practices and prayers do I need to institute in my life to be an appropriate level of gratitude, respect, and awe. And questions arose for me about, all right, I only eat pasture-raised eggs, but I'm not like going to factory farms and chaining myself to the whatever, to stop abusive, horrific factory farming, right? So it raised questions for me about my level of obligation and action. Mary Rita.
Yeah, it was the word responsibility that came, and I could feel it in my chest, in my heart, that you said it perfectly, that my life came from other creatures saying yes. It's kind of like I believe in you before I even know you.
And not only that, our essence was in part formed from their essence.
Yeah.
So unlike Shner Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad Hasidism, who disgustingly talks of the animal soul, we are made up of the animal soul in a beautiful, amazing way.
So I want to say that I was troubled by the suggestion that they gave away something in order for. Can you repeat that line?
Yeah, let me get back there. Hold on. Ha. the creatures all agreed to the creation of humans and all gave of their power to the formation of humans. So I don't think it took that away from them. It was just like a transmission is what I got from that.
Well, I appreciate your reading of it, because up until that line, I was like, wow, it was all of the creatures who agreed that humans should be, and so we are indebted to them.
Yes.
But that line sounded to me like, okay, these are men writing this, imagining this, and once again taking power away from, rather than
Mm.
some kind of line that would actually suggest what I experience, which is that they wove us into the power that already existed in this realm, right?
Shamati.
And so, yeah, that was what
I'm
I
with
wanted to
you.
say
And I
before,
read
but
it
I
that
really
way.
appreciate what you said.
And I'm sorry, I don't know that the Hebrew would actually help, but I'm going to go back and look at the Hebrew. I didn't bring it up with me on the, yeah. But I just want to say Marion wrote a note in the chat in case folks haven't been attending to the chat. She said, I don't see things the same way the text says. I don't believe that humans have free will. I do not believe only humans have free will. It feels like another statement of human superiority. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marion. All right, Rabbi Victor. Reb Victor.
So, as much as I revere much of the teachings of the Pia's Esther, I find this, because he sources it in certain prior sources,
Yes.
the fundamental point that he starts from is that the crown of creation is human beings. And if you accept that as the stepping stones to the ultimate creation, then what he said is okay. But it's not okay for me, because I do. All right. In fact, Nadia and I have played with the possibility of reversing the creation story and put human beings at the beginning and put everything else create a different hierarchy and see what happens to our sense of being. And I agree that the old argument of free will, as opposed to the opposite of it, determinism, is a classic mystical argument where he comes down on one side, and it's not necessarily true, and we know it isn't true. And to assert, which he does, that animals don't have free will, but human beings have free will, is absolutely wrong. Science has proved that for decades that isn't the case. So other than that, I find it also delightful in the way he's teaching about the mutuality of gift giving. It just needs to be restructured in how it goes like this, how it ends up like this.
Thank you.
So
And you're getting lots of thumbs up. And I have so much to get to. So Nadia, you'll get the last word. Reb
Okay,
Nadia?
I just wanted to add that I actually had this thought in the last couple of weeks as I've been writing, about the tree of life as we're climbing up the tree towards Rosh Hashanah, that perhaps the fact that we humans are, we're the last thing created doesn't mean that we are the crown of creation, but rather the afterthought, the oops. And what does that do to our sense of ourselves? When we think of ourselves as the afterthought or the oops, I have an aunt who is, who was what was called the change of life baby, right? She came 19 years after my mother, and and uh, and always had to prove that she belonged. She had to work harder to prove that she belonged. And I thought, what if that was our posture, right? How would that change our relationship with the natural world? Anyway, Ubarti. Thanks, Deb.
Damati, beautiful. So, from our ancestors and our predecessors to today, how did we get here in Jewish renewal to decide to embark on this two-pronged adventure, a social justice adventure? So I want to talk a little bit about the data gathering that got us here. And I want to talk about data collection as pastoral care, community care, and spiritual awakening. I was very, very intentional around ascertaining what work Aleph would do collectively, because I knew that while there were a couple of very, very well-known justice activists in our sphere, hundreds of my friends were doing amazing work locally and some nationally in all kinds of arenas, police accountability, immigrant rights, reproductive rights, everything, trans, LGBTQI plus rights, everything. So I wanted to see, okay, folks, if we embarked on some kind of work together, where we were going to throw our collective power towards a certain goal, what topic did you want to work on? And what strategies would you want to use? And what do you think our priorities, within those strategies should be? So I interviewed 17 people, including community representatives, some of the luminaries in the social justice world in Jewish renewal, lots of congregational rabbis, and folks from congregations that I knew were doing justice work that was very grassroots up, and then did a survey, and then did focus groups to get to the specifics of what our work would be after that. And don't need to know the numbers and how many people were involved. What the most important part of this process was for me is that people felt heard, joined, excited, inspired, and hopeful in a way they had not before the data collection was conducted. Hopeful and united. There was so much enthusiasm about us moving forward. And I am not surprised that climate care came up as the number one, because it's like, queer stuff. Some people are like, maybe, oh, I don't know about this trans stuff. I'm queer, by the way, and identify as non-binary. So I'm like, I'm not speaking for myself when I say that. There are people along the spectrum in terms of what level of accompaniment and allyship do we want to offer to the immigrants who are under siege, who are being, kidnapped and thrown out of the country, et cetera, et cetera. But climate care in the Jewish renewal world, who's going to say no to that, right? That being said, the level of thoughtfulness about what exactly we would do and how we would do it was remarkably spiritually led. So I'll get to what the outcomes were in a little bit. The next thing I want to lift up is that when you do justice work in the four worlds, and I think everybody here is probably familiar with the four worlds. So when you engage, heart, body, mind, and soul, and not just kind of legislative work and tactical work and work that's in the head. You have the capacity, first of all, to restore and renew as you do the work, because the soul work is nourishing you and providing inspiration and energy. And the prayer work is providing connectivity to spirit and to one another and to our ancestors. So the nature of spirit-led justice work is different than secular work, and it builds the container for what Jewish renewal is all about, which is living a spirit-led life. The last thing, which is related to the work in Israel-Palestine, is that the task of bridging areas where great disagreement exists, as with Israel-Palestine, by building a shared body of knowledge, learning dialogue skills, using those skills to figure out what we agree on, and taking action to manifest a shared vision, gets us totally unhooked from the current polarized dynamic of Zionist, anti-Zionist, which takes us nowhere, absolutely nowhere. It paralyzes us and leaves us bereft and disconnected from one another. So the work of preparing to do justice work is itself spiritual practice. So before I move on to what the reasons were for doing this work that people came up with, any questions about that or comments about that? moving right along. So, why embrace this work? This is what people came up with. We need to ensure our future. Every Jew, not just renewal Jews, consider climate care in Israel-Palestine amongst the most pressing issues of our day. If we don't respond, we have no future. The earth will die, and the land that is sacred to us, that is our homeland, will be in tatters. It's also a core founding principle of Jewish renewal. These two pieces, climate care and creating peaceful and sustainable coexistence in Israel-Palestine. So doing this work ensures that we are relevant, awake, and effective, and that we thrive for generation. Brings us together, heals rifts. Our community leaders said, this is just what we want. We've been wondering, why are we affiliated with Aleph? Oh, you're giving us the answer. Not me, Deb, but, the responses from this survey. And the next generation, they're like, frequently have said, if we don't do this work, we wonder why we're involved with Jewish renewal. Aleinu, it's upon us. It's our clear deployment as inheritors of Reb Zalman's vision and teaching. We need to seize the moment. Now that people are engaged and felt spiritually connected around the data collection, they're raring to go. The leaders of all the Jewish renewal components have bought in. The next one isn't relevant to other organizations, but Aleph had been doing all this operational fundraising, and this is programmatic work. So it's like, all right, great, you build all this container, but what's the work you're going to do in the container? So it answers that question. And of course, it's beautiful and important, so it gave us something to coalesce around. All right. So let me just check in before I move to the climate care. Any questions about why? Probably seems obvious. That's probably why you decided to come onto the call. Yeah? So can I move forward? All right. So what are we gonna do? Well, as I said, it was really important to me to have a few streams of work because people are inundated. Every single day you get 1,000 emails in your inbox. Oh, should I sign this petition? Oh, should I give to this organization? Oh, should I attend this rally? So having some kind of discipline around our shared work felt really important. So there are a few buckets for the climate care work. Here we go. The first is organizational partnerships. I consulted with Jewish Earth Alliance, Dayenu, and Adama, and secular climate care organizations about the best possible political strategy. How many here, raise your hand, have you heard of make polluters pay legislation? All right. A couple people. First of all, nothing's happening right now. There's total deadlock at the federal level. So the work needs to be in the states. There are 20 states who are pursuing make polluter pay legislation. And it's basically, if anyone has legal background, it's like a tort claim. You've created harm. Now you have to pay to repair the harm you've created. A little bit of information. Big oil has known about climate change since the 70s. Extreme climate events cost the United States over $150 billion a year. We're paying higher tax prices at the pump and billions for climate disasters. And the industries that are doing the harm continue to pull in record profits. The Make Polluters Pay legislation holds big oil accountable for the damage they've done. Bills have been passed in New York and Vermont, and they're pending in 20 other states. So the first thing that we're going to work on is activating our leaders and our communities who live in those 20 states around that legislation. Second, totally different. So you could call that maybe in the world of ASEA, action and yes, action. Second level, urban forestry or community gardens that have gleaning for those who are in need, which lives that construct lives at the intersection of food justice and permaculture and environmental food production. We introduced folks who are at the Kala to a local urban forest. so that they could learn more about how they function. It was at Montgomery College. 60% of the students at Montgomery College, Montgomery County, Maryland, are food insecure. So this forest provides foods for those students. All right, so where does that fall? I think that falls in a lot of places. I think it falls in the soul. I think it falls in the world of Bria and the mind. So several different places on the four worlds. Next category, greening events and communities. Adama, if how many people are aware of Adama? Raise your hand. Amazing Jewish environmental organization. For free, it costs nothing to join them. Congregations and Jewish institutions can get consulting support on greening their institutions, whether they rent or own, and they can also apply for grants to do the work, install solar panels, low flow toilets, shift over to electric from gas, whatever it is. So greening institutions and communities, greening events. Here's some examples of how we did that at the Kala. And get our affiliated programs, the ordination program and Ohala to do likewise. If you are a member of a community, a congregation, and you're interested in finding more about them, I think you could put your phone up to this and it'll take you to the link to Adama if you're interested in doing that. So I'm going to leave that up there for a second. More action. More in Asiya. All right, is everybody good? Can I scroll on?
I'll get it later.
Back?
Yeah.
All right. So while you're doing that, the next piece of the climate care work, not surprisingly, is education, both for kids and for adults, but not just like here's how to recycle and here's how to reuse. Folks are interested in things like we want to hear scientists giving the latest information on the cutting edge information on what's going to work, what's going to get us out of this crisis. And I like to give an example. I was in Iceland a year ago, and I don't know if you know this about Iceland. I'm going to come off the screen for a second. But Iceland is basically uses like 98% renewable energy sources, mostly geothermal. You know, they're very active volcanic, and also water. They have got like 10,000 waterfalls. All right. They have zero skin in the game to address carbon emission, the problems from carbon emission, because they're 98% renewable resource. Yet they sent a team of scientists to figure out how to fix carbon, which is basically taking it out of the gaseous form and back into solid form in the earth to mitigate the harms of use of carbon. And they figured it out. Iceland, who has no problem with this issue, figured out how to fix carbon. They have not yet figured out how to scale it quickly enough. That's the next step. But so there is amazing research going on. And our people said, we don't want to just like do the boring stuff. We want to be excited. We want to be inspired. We want to have hope. So this is to me like a connection between what's happening in the mind and what's happening in the soul, right? And we're doing webinars for all of our people to both as education and so folks can have conversations with one another and be in relationship with one another around the work around the country. So that's the climate care piece. And before I move into how all of this is being made manifest in Israel, Palestine, I need to take a breath and ask any questions, any comments, anything you want to share that you're doing that feels like a fit. Marilyn?
I'd love to see your last slide and then make a comment.
All right. The last slide about climate care?
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Hold on.
So I think my comment is, first of all, my name is Marilyn Paul. I live in Berkeley, California. I'm on the board of Urban Adama. And one of the things I'm talking with people about here, I'm also part right now of the Israel-Palestine design team for Chochmat Halev. And what strikes me that I would love to talk to anyone about is how much living Judaism, keeping Shabbat, finding our rhythms, following the seasons, seasonality, discovering that there's a prayer of gratitude at the beginning of the day and that there's a prayer at the end of the day, that we start to notice that we live in time with sun and moon and stars and rhythm. That some of the things that I've been talking with people about here is when we think about regenerative living and we start to grow our garden or be part of a farm community, that Jewish, not just theology, but Jewish practice helps us prepare for the regenerative islands of resilience, islands of regeneration that we know we need to be building. So I'll just say that and would love to have that conversation with anyone on this call.
Well, I'd love to have that conversation with you. And I'd also love if you've got curricula that you're willing to share. I would
Not yet.
Well,
Working on it.
How's this? Because Chokhmah is part of our network. So part of what I'm doing is creating a clearinghouse of curricula. So Chokhmah definitely needs to make sure that they're on board with this so that they are receiving the curricula that already exists and can also share the curricula that you develop, as well as Urban Anima. I mean, Urban Anima is not actually part of our network, but that doesn't matter. Just so, this is what I'm going to do right now. Sorry, I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm putting my email address into the chat.
Great. Thank you. This is wonderful. I'm so thrilled to be here. And I myself am working on a workbook called Enough is Enough.
Oh, beautiful. Enough is enough. It's enough already.
Histakut, maspik, yesh lanu maspik. So that type of thing.
Yofi me'od. Anyone else on climate care? Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hi, Peggy. I've seen you.
Victor, yes, Reb Victor.
Yeah, I was listening even though I had to take care of something. I know, Deb, you're politically astute. So in regard to climate change, California, which has very strict environmental rules, right? So the political response to increasing, because that's what they want to do, the rules and control, Chevron announced they're moving their headquarters, I think, to Texas. Why not?
Yeah.
All right. And they cited specifically environmental rules. So there is that problem. It's not like they're taking their oil wells with them, unfortunately, but that's the reality is there is a response to the efforts that are made. And all right, and they're usually corporate power versus the will of the people.
There are. One of the things I love about the Make Polluters Pay work is that historically there have been astounding successes when we went for the pocketbook. Example, Portland, Oregon, white nationalists, including the Klan, were destroyed by litigation that sued them and bankrupt them. And historically, a lot of environmental destruction has been repaired from litigation that is making, toxic waste creators pay for the damage that they have created. So, yes, what you're saying is true. There will be pushback. There will be, yeah, that's true. And there's been remarkable success with this specific strategy. So I'm excited about it. Yeah. Anyone else on climate care before we move to Israel-Palestine? All right. So let me say a few words before I put up a slide. I don't know about the organizations where you live or where you daven or where you work, but every Jewish institution I've been connected with is in the midst of incredibly painful, polarized conversation. Anti-Zionists are leaving or Zionists are leaving. They can't come together. There's incredible intergenerational conflict. Younger people are more likely to be anti-Zionists. Older, their parents are more likely to be Zionists. And there has been a remarkable incapacity to find a pathway forward and to find ease. Jewish renewal, you might think, wouldn't have that issue, but it does. And the conflict isn't like AIPAC orientation versus JVP orientation. It's between progressive Zionists and anti-Zionists. So Aleph, like a lot of institutions, has been somewhat paralyzed. It has not taken very many stands, and it has not invited its constituents to take specific actions in response to those stands. And so a lot of the work of data collection was, what is it possible to do in that climate? So let me just take a little poll. Does anyone else function in an environment that sounds like that? Raise your hand if you're functioning. Yeah. So it's our dilemma. So I was really delighted, actually, to see the path forward that folks came up with. So I'm going to put this up on the screen and share with you what we're doing. So the first response was, Aleph is already putting forth information on standing together as a coexistence, co-resistance organization, and wants to continue to do that and to amplify and expand that multiplication effect for standing together, and also work with other Israeli and Palestinian coexistence groups. And I've already set up a schedule for 5 webinars that feature Jewish renewal Israeli folks and their Palestinian partners. Interestingly enough, one pair are the poets, Michal and her partner, who Yerusha is going to be highlighting soon. But in addition to the poets, we are also having one of our rabbinic students, Alana Sumka, who lived in Israel, Palestine for many years and founded the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, and now runs another organization that basically supports Jewish institutions in America to get more informed about what's happening in Israel, Palestine, and more educated specifically about Palestinian realities and hopes and goals. So she's going to come and speak with a Palestinian partner. Rabbi Chaviva Ner David, who is a Standing Together activist in Israel, is going to come with a Palestinian partner. Eliza Mayo, who's the deputy director of the Arava Institute, which happens to be one of the coexistence. Amazing. It lives at the intersection of this work of climate care and Israel-Palestine. It's an environmental organization that is co-led by Israelis and Palestinians. Will come with a Palestinian partner. So those, all of that work is being done to create a foundation of shared information, shared knowledge, so that we could have conversations as opposed to these polarized debates and arguments. And in addition to that, we're going to support folks who are doing this work with us in every other month webinars, separate from those educational webinars, to bring in conversations about how people are moving along in their dialogue work. So I'm going to put up the next slide. In addition to the organizational partnerships of like supporting Standing Together and the webinars, we're going to align with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence and create an Aleph trip. I don't know if you know, for those of you who might not know, the Center for Jewish Nonviolence does accompaniment trips. So Jews from around the world come to the West Bank and put our bodies on the line to stand in support and accompany the Palestinians against the violent settlers. So we're going to work with them to create an Aleph specific trip that will be infused with, prayer and text study, and we'll have visits from Israeli Jewish renewalists and just really be unique to what our constituents are looking for. And then we're going to provide skills and frameworks for our communities and our leaders to have dialogues across difference and schedule dialogues at AOP and OHALA and future Kolodny. And there have been some efforts at OHALA that have not been very successful/effective. So we will likely engage some of the people who are experts in doing that work. And finally, after like the information grounding and sharing and the skill building and dialogue, we're going to convene a cross-section of stakeholders to see what specific issues we agree upon and what steps we can take to manifest a shared vision. And I'm very fond of saying it this way. I think all binaries have the potential to be quite destructive, and Zionism and anti-Zionism is as problematic as you can get. So if we looked at what we agree on, I will say that everyone in my world, in the progressive Zionist to anti-Zionist world, agrees that Bibi Netanyahu is the love child of Trump and Putin, and he is a criminal, and he was a criminal before he was a war criminal, and now he's a war criminal, and he needs to be in jail. And the only reason he is continuing this violent onslaught against Gaza is to keep himself out of jail, totally out of Trump's playbook. He needs to be gone. Everybody I know agrees with that. Everybody I know agrees that violent settlers must be held account and must be put in jail and must be stopped. Everyone agrees that the occupation needs to end in the West Bank, and everyone agrees that there needs to be a ceasefire in Gaza. So rather than hone in on these camps where the primary disagreement, I guess, is whether or not Israel exists, let's just stop having that conversation and talk about the things that we do agree on and then take action on that. All right. So, not going to do that here, but poetry of protest and struggle. We have cousin Michal Rubin and her partner Basman Darawi, which is something that we showed at the Kala. So before I go to closing, we have 15 minutes, like questions, comments. What do you think is most useful to do in Israel-Palestine? What have you been doing? What resonates with you about the approach we're taking? What do you wish was there in addition or instead? What have you seen work that broke through some of these barriers of that polarization creates? The floor is open. Beth?
There we are. No, I just I wanted to thank you. I find a lot of this information. It's a lot of information, and it's lots of ways for us to participate and find ways to have hope for the situation. And that seems, that is so terrible and does seem so hopeless. So I'm talking about Israel Palestine, and yeah, I mean and more information about how to. I just appreciate everything you shared, and yeah, I hope there's going to be more of this or follow-ups, and we can get the link, all the slides that you prepared for us with the information.
Sure, I'm happy to send them to Nadia. And Beth, I know we've met somewhere, but I don't remember where.
Just recently at Kala.
Was it at Kala?
I was, yeah, and I think, and I recognize the text study that we did for with Rabbi Kolodny, renewing our relation with creation and yeah, and I was really inspired by it. I mean, I'm just a shaliach tzibur and a teacher. I teach in our religious school here in Albuquerque at Nachalat Shalom, which was, you might know, Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb, and it was founded by her and
Debra Brand, Rabbi Debra, and yeah.
Debra, yeah. And now we have a wonderful student rabbi. Hopefully, we're going to be able to hold on to her for a while. Josie, she went by Josie Felt. She's graduating from the Reconstructionist seminary this coming year. So she's spending the year with us. And
Yeah,
yeah.
So for those who are connected to Jewish renewal communities, hopefully you receive Aleph newsletter information. The way to get involved, first of all, connect with Adama on the climate care. Everyone should do that. Just connect with them and make sure your GOG or your institution is greening itself. And access to money and access to consulting. And on the Israel-Palestine work, I guess what I would like to say is copy my email address, send me an email, and I'll make sure that when we send out invitations to webinars, if you're not an official community rep or a ordained clergy or clergy student, you'll get that. But someone from Nachalat Shalom should be getting information about that. So on your end, I'd like to ask you to see who gets the Aleph information and make sure that there's an official representative from Nachalat Shalom, and maybe you could be that person.
Can hear you.
You've gone mute. So many buttons. All right. I think I've said what I'm going to say. So get my email address, copy it off, and email me. Mary Rita or Marilyn?
So, Osei Shalom, which is our brick and mortar community, has a really strong justice and climate care agenda, and that's thanks to our rabbis. And not just the rabbis, because there's a strong group. And I first, and we have people who are connected with Arava. I think is that the one in Israel Palestine leader?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And Dan and I first found out about that. I can't tell you how many years ago, because we went to a fundraiser for it, where Mandy Patinkin, gave us a concert in somebody's living room to raise money for it. And then we found out that one of our really good friends at OSE had done a bike ride in Israel to raise funds. So I think there's a lot there. There's not a lot of like coming together for a lot of discussion, because I think that just keeps in the climate. But Dan is someone who, from like when things began to heat up, he was curious about what he calls the rogue Reconstructionist rabbis, and he does go to whenever they are bringing speakers in. He's not there like rah, I believe, but he wants to know the different areas. And so I think I learned more from him. Our family, the family is Habonim, so they've been Zionists. That is their Judaism. And so, and we have family in Israel, and who protest for us because we can't in Israel. So I want to make sure, I wanted Dan to come tonight, and he wasn't feeling good. So I will sit down with the slides, and we can see, what touches him. I can say that he's been active in the Imago relationship community since I don't want to go to their meetings. And he has really addressed the whole Israeli-Palestinian question on a committee that wanted the Imago organization to basically take a political stand supporting Palestine and not discuss and he made them do communologue and talk about what they were believing. So it can happen in a lot of different places. Maybe not a project, but his project was, to have these people who are relationship and teach dialogue to not be coming down on the side of one part of question.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Beth, it looks like you've unmuted.
Yeah, I think for some reason my my iPad was updating, so it got frozen. That's why sorry about that. But yes, I think I don't know if I'm the only person, but it seems like I'm the only person who talks about things going on at Aleph. I know another member, Robin Berman, is pretty active and does a lot of things through Aleph and some of the different programs. I feel like we're the only two, and I'm happy to send things to, we have a weekly e-news. That's most of the stuff comes off of our website that goes on there, but if there was, something, a big thing that I had enough notice, I could send it to our director. And yeah, I was actually going to include some of this class. I had to write a message for Elul. So, but I don't think I got it out in time to share with, people about this workshop. But hopefully, there will be more of this. And yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of our community because you can visit our homepage, and right there on the front page, it's like Israel/Palestine and Nahat Shalom. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's and I mean, I feel like most of the people there are probably more leaning, towards, I wouldn't say anti-Zionist even. I think people are still for a two-state solution, and I want peace and want two communities to live as a family next to each other. That's the feeling I get from most of the people I know there.
Well, one of the things I want to emphasize is that this
Mhm.
project is not an educational project. It's an activation project.
Sure, yeah.
And so to the extent that people think this or feel that, that's great.
Yeah.
But really the work in climate care, it's going to start with, activation and education at the same time. And the Israel-Palestine work is going to kind of build up and ramp up to it. Yeah, and to be in the point of the webinars is not for Nahalat Shalom to be a passive recipient of information. It's to be in dialogue with other communities and with other groups, right? So when Reb Nadia and I first talked about this, we imagined, because Yerusha has a very broad constituency base. There are Christian people and Muslim people and, Jews who are not Jewish and all Jews. And so I came prepared to be broad-based and, general. And the folks who are on this call, like you're all living in the Jewish renewal world. So I've kind of responded to that, but we don't have to only focus on what Aleph is doing. So Marilyn,
No, of course not. Yeah. No, I appreciate all well, hopefully we'll be able to share and get people more active in some of these other groups. I'm more interested mostly in the climate change work. And I actually volunteer and do a lot of work here for a lot of environmental groups and educational groups. And I work, with the kids a lot. So I'm bringing in people from our open space centers and rangers and young people who are biologists.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we have 5 minutes, and I want to make sure Marilyn had her hand up and that
I'm sorry, and I actually have to go, but I did want to just clarify that I wasn't here just to all this stuff, great stuff, and I appreciate all the work and all the help you guys are doing, and hopefully we will be able to connect.
That'd be great. I look forward to it.
Thank you all.
All right, Marilyn.
First of all, thank you so much for this and for putting the idea of Tikkun Haaretz together. And so I've been really struggling with that and looking for some of the underpinnings. And I think your first study, the text on who is strong, he or whoever overcomes their inclination to do harm.
Yes.
And I just want to acknowledge, first of all, I worked in Gaza for 2 years, and I have to really face a lot of feelings of people I want to do harm to, because it's such a complicated situation. And I was there under the auspices of the Israeli army. Long story, obviously, but I think I really love that text. And I think the work is to also overcome our inclinations to avoid hearing what's hard to hear, to avoid saying what's hard to say, like, I just want to fly everywhere I want to fly, might be in the climate care. I'm older, I'm going to do what I want. Or in Israel, Palestine, I don't really care how people feel about XYZ. I have my stance and I'm sticking with it. And then facing what's hard to face, saying what's hard to say, because we cannot shift ourselves, I think, unless we have extraordinarily hard conversations, but also somehow with joy and music and upliftment, because otherwise we'll just keep avoiding the conversations. So my vote is for food, sharing recipes, good homemade food, cook together, and then figure out what are we going to do with all the tears and the anger and the sadness and the tension and the need to dance. So I just really thank you, because I'm struggling here at Hachmat with the people who are so intense about Israel-Palestine and aren't interested in climate care so much. It's like so I'm partly walking away with this, and the reason I came to this is to weave those. So thank you very much. And I will share this with my fellow design team.
Thank you so much. It is 8:13, at least on the East Coast. It's 13 after the hour everywhere. And I want to just bring this home with the closing for the Unatana Tokef, because I think all justice work is tshuva work. It is identifying the harms and repairing the harms and figuring out how to not do them again, and catching ourselves when the temptation arises to do it again. That's Teshuvah Gemara is a whole nother level. It's not just an apology. Thank you very much. So to ground us in the season and in the hope that we will be able to attain that place of Teshuvah Gemara, complete repair, complete atonement, complete return to a place of beauty and wholeness and a pure soul. Just to hear the words, the closing. U'teshuva, u'tefila, u'tzetaka, ma'avirin et ro'ah hagazera. May we find that place of wholeness and complete repair. B'meira b'yameinu. Thank you for coming. Victor and Nadja, thank you. Rabbis Victor and Nadja, thank you so much for hosting and for all the beautiful tikkun work you do in the world and all the spirit-led everything you do in the world, and the level of awakening you're bringing people to, and the level of consciousness, collective consciousness that you're elevating. I really love you both so much.
Amen. And we could say all the same back at you. Thank you so much, Rabbi Deb, for being with us. Thank you for hanging in with us, those of you who are here and others. And we will
Thank you.
we will confirm Mary Rita is actually the chair of our community circle, and will figure out how the Yerusha community can follow up with this work as well. So
And I'll send you those slides right now so I don't forget.
perfect. Thanks. All right.
Everybody.
Laila Tov, everybody.
So we
Shana
all get
Tova.
these slides, or is it just for your
Yeah, I'll share them. I'll share them with everyone who registered for the program. So you'll get them, Marilyn.
Yeah, I'd love to share them
Cool.
forward if that's okay.
Sure, share them out. My name, my contact information isn't on that, so I'll put it on there before I send it out.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
idea.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. This was amazing.
Laila Tov. Shana Tova.